57 days until opening day, and one player for the Cincinnati Reds that wore number 57 set a record that will never, ever be broken. We'll tell you who it is and what it is on this bonus episode of Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds for this bonus episode as we are excited about the number 57 here on Locked On Reds, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every single day. My name is Jeff Carr. His is Stephen Offenbaker. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have turned an addiction to this team into information for you. I want to thank you for making Locked On Reds your first and your second listen. We are with you every single day, all throughout the season, all throughout the off season. We're here talking Reds baseball and about your favorite team. And today's bonus edition of the Locked On Reds podcast is, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New users can now get $200 in bonus bets with their first winning $5 bet. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Steve, where we want to start today, 57 days until opening day here. And the reason we did this bonus, we wanted to throw this in on the episode for Wednesday, but there's just too much to add. And we wanted to do a bonus episode because we got to talk about the best number 57. There have been a lot of guys that have actually worn the number 57 for the Cincinnati Reds, but this dude stands out above the rest.
Absolutely. We're talking Johnny Vander Meer. And if you don't know who Johnny Vander Meer is, you're really missing out. We'll start with the record that he holds. He is the only pitcher in Major League Baseball history to throw back-to-back no-hitters. And as a matter of fact, not only did he throw back-to-back no-hitters, but in the third game, he took a no-no into the fourth before he finally lost that no-hitter streak. So that finished at 21 innings, Jeff. He threw 21 no-hit innings in a row as a starting pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. He is probably a really underrated guy to have pitched for the Reds because he did a lot of things in his career. And this is, we talked off air, not the only number he wore throughout his career. It changed around a lot. But he pitched 11 seasons for the Cincinnati Reds. Of those 11 seasons, 3 times, Jeff, he led the league in strikeouts. He finished his career as a Red, 116 wins, 116 losses, a 3.41 ERA. And if we dig into my favorite numbers, it was back in a different era of baseball. He struck out 5.6 per 9 and he walked 4.8. So he still managed to get the job done, even though he was giving up those free bases every once in a while. But Johnny Vander Meer is a great story. And that third game after the back-to-back no-hitters, like he got his parents out to the ballpark and it kind of was becoming a big deal. And he threw those 3 no-hit innings to start off the third start. But I think this is a pitcher that in Reds history, we don't celebrate enough.
No, and he pitched in a bygone era, an era where really the starting pitcher went a lot further into the game, whether or not he was getting shelled. There were plenty of times that he pitched a complete game that he gave up 5, 6, 7 runs, but that's just how pitching staffs worked back then. There were relief pitchers only break glass in case of emergency. Did you go to the bullpen back then, though? That's kind of how things rolled, and most of the roster was made up of position players. Johnny Vander Meer, though, his feet will never be broken. I don't ever see a scenario for multiple reasons, but I don't ever see a scenario where we have guys throw back-to-back no-hitters, especially because there's now a stigma. Like, a pitcher who is able to stay in the game long enough, throw enough pitches, and record a no-hitter, the very next time out is throwing a very short start. It's just how things go. I mean, the best example of it was Johan Santana. He threw a no-hitter, and it ruined his career. Like, after that, he was never the same pitcher. There's something about the way that pitching has evolved, that pitching has changed, that too many guys go too hard too quick, and it's very hard for them to go 9 innings and throw the amount of pitches that are necessary to get the job done. Plus, you're also talking about a day and age of baseball that Johnny Vander Meer pitched in, where guys were swinging at a lot of stuff, and really he was an aberration in that he was effectively wild. Major league pitchers back in the 30s and 40s were lauded for not throwing, or were lauded for throwing strikes, not walking guys. And probably my favorite stat about his back-to-back no-hitters is he had 11 walks across those 2 no-hitters. He actually had, I think there were 2 innings where the bases were loaded against him during those no-hitters. So it's funny to see that how good he was, and it was in lieu of the fact that he allowed a few base on balls.
Yeah, a couple additional notes on Johnny Vander Meer. Lost 2 years, full 2 years of playing time to military service. Did not play in 1944 or 1945 as he was off doing his military duty during World War II. And then when you talk about those complete games, Jeff, roughly a third of his starts, without being able to do the math on the fly, but roughly a third of his starts were complete games. So, just a bygone era. There was a couple, 1 year in 1943, Jeff, 289 innings pitched for Johnny Vander Meer during the 1943 season. So the guy was chucking it.
He was absolutely insane. And my favorite thing about him too, because he pitched in an era where the Reds won the World Series, he actually didn't pitch that much in 1940. He dealt with injuries a lot. That World Series team was largely Bucky Walters and Paul Derringer. They could have had that third pitcher, but again, you win the World Series, coulda, woulda, shoulda doesn't mean anything when you get the trophy. But it's funny to note that a guy who was that dominant back then was not that big a part of the World Series club. But there are plenty of other guys that wore the number 57, including a very key member of the 90s Reds. And he brought in the Reds' all-time saves leader. We'll talk about John Smiley coming up right after this. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Make the best out of Super Bowl week with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers to FanDuel can get $200 in bonus bets with their first winning bet of $5 or more. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to take advantage of this. FanDuel wants to give you more W's as the NFL season comes to a conclusion with the Super Bowl coming up next week. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday. You can bet on who's going to win the Super Bowl. You can bet on who's going to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, who's going to have the Super Bowl MVP at the end of the game. You can bet on the color of Gatorade that the winning coach gets dumped on with. All of that and more over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to take advantage of it. Again, new users can win $200 in bonus bets with their first winning $5 money line, or any bet, not just money line bet. Plus, you can jump in on some MLB futures. Noelvi Marte plus 950 to win the NL Rookie of the Year. He got the third best odds. Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the Dodgers has the best odds to win it. Noelvi Marte is third. So check him out today, FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL and the official sportsbook of Locked On.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy and keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
There you go with that wardrobe change again. Crazy how you do that. Thanks for making Locked On Reds your first and second listen every single day. Make sure, if you are not an everydayer, to subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and right here on YouTube. We love it when folks become everydayers. Everydayers are what drive us to do better each and every day. And make sure you hit the like button as well. Love to game the system on the algorithm and get YouTube to bump our videos even more. Likes and comments, get that done. And coming up Friday at 2 p.m., Aloha Friday, the live edition of the Locked On Reds podcast, where you get to drive the ship with your questions and your comments. Join us on the Locked On Reds YouTube page at 2 p.m. Friday afternoon. All right, Steve, we are talking about 57 because we're 57 days away from opening day. Johnny Vander Meer is clear and far away the best number 57 on this list, but there were still plenty of guys worth mentioning, including one John Smiley.
Yeah, John Smiley, another guy that probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves for what he did while he was in Cincinnati. But also, I mean, when the Reds finally traded him away, it resulted in bringing in Danny Graves, who would go on to become the Reds' all-time saves leader. So, John Smiley got off to a rough start in his career as a member of the Cincinnati Reds. He came over in 1993, where he started 18 games through 105 innings, a 5.62 ERA. Not great. Strikeouts per nine was 5.1. His walk rate was great, though, 2.6. And then every year after that, he pitched much better. ERAs dropped to 3.86, 3.46, 3.64 before being traded away in 1997. So I think that of this group of players that wore the number 57, Smiley is another one that we don't talk an awful lot about. He was an all-star for the Reds in 1995. So this is a guy that represented the city well, put up some decent numbers, and ultimately was parlayed into the baby-faced assassin.
And an all-star in 1995. I mean, if John Smiley can be an all-star, let's say he was a pretty solid pitcher, but if John Smiley can be an all-star, all five of the starters that the Reds have this season could definitely be an all-star. And you also look at the other number 57s of note. You have current Reds bench coach Freddie Benavides back in 1991 was number 57. There's so many different names that are on this list. Stuart Fairchild was back in 2022. You also have a couple of actually like solid players, and Juan Guzman and Rick Green. And you go back, and Eddie Milner wore number 57 back in 1980. Who sticks out to you among the list of the other 57s on this list?
So, there's some cases here where you've got a guy that, wore it when he made his debut and then ultimately switched up. And one of the names on this list that did that was in 1985 when Paul O'Neill took the field wearing number 57, bats left and kicks left-footed, if you recall, down there in Houston. So Paul O'Neill is a guy that kind of jumps out at me. Tracy Jones on this list wearing the number 57 in 1986. I imagine that makes number 57 Marty Brenneman's favorite number. Him and Tracy Jones are stuck together like glue. So, and scrolling through the list, let's go recency biased. Stuart Fairchild wore number 57 when he came up in 2022, as did JT Riddle. I know our buddy Ken probably has that JT Riddle number 57.
Yeah, he is an all-time entrant into the obscure former Reds
no kidding
the book.
But for me, I like that.
Yeah, I think he appeared in as many games as your favorite player. Oh, what's his name? He went to the Cardinals. He only played in the Toronto series.
Mr. I can't field a ground ball at third base, Tyler Motter. No, he did not wear number 57.
I think it was Taylor Motter.
Taylor Ty. See, he doesn't. I'm not even going to bother to learn his name. He's that Motter. Yeah. But there's some big names. There's some big names throughout Reds history that have at least temporarily wore this number, Jeff. And it's why it ended up with its own little freestanding mini episode here. I wanted to talk about Johnny Vander Meer long term. We could probably do another 3-4 minutes talking about Eddie Milner. We could talk about what Paul O'Neill meant to the Reds. But for me, it hands down, back-to-back no-hitters, 21 innings of no-hit baseball as a starter. Johnny Vander Meer is the owner of the greatest Cincinnati Red to wear the number 57.
And coming up on the live show on Friday for the Aloha Live Edition, we will be talking about the number 55, which includes a couple of recent relief pitchers and one all-time fan favorite that you may have forgotten wore the number 55. We'll talk about that on Friday. Steve, take us away.
Until then, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks so much for making us your first and second listen today. Make sure you click the subscribe button. Make sure you click that notification bell. You don't want to miss when we drop extra content. Get in the comment section. Tell us what you think about the players that wore number 57. We want to hear from you because we love talking baseball with you. Until we're back in your feed next time, Jeff, tell them what they can expect from us.
They can expect us to be all over the rumors, all over the grumblings, all over the rumblings about your Cincinnati Reds, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.